Is this thing on? Welcome to the second episode of Broad Street Banter with Brito. We are back after a brief 9-month hiatus. I know. I'm very sorry for neglecting this podcast, but we are here now, and that's all that matters. Now, the last time I spoke to you was in September of 2023. That means that was before the wild card matchup against the Marlins for the Phillies. I think it was like only week 3 or week 4, maybe not even, of the NFL season. So the Eagles were probably still undefeated at that point, I believe. The Sixers weren't even playing yet. I can't even talk about them. The Sixers just make me so mad. So recapping the Phillies, you guys know what happened. What I think is probably the most heartbreaking loss I've experienced as a Philly sports fan. First, beat the Marlins. Great. I think everyone expected that. Then handled the Braves again. That was such an amazing series. So much fun to watch on TV. You got the Bryce Harper, Orlando Arcia moment. I'm so mad at myself for not making podcasts at that point to talk about what was happening. But it was just so heartbreaking to see them fall short to the Diamondbacks in the NLCS. The Diamondbacks were the better team. There's no sugarcoating it or anything like that. They completely had our number after those first 2 games. I went to game 2, I believe, in Citizens Bank Park. Game 2? I think so. I think it was game 2. And then it was like the best game of the NLCS for the Phillies. And then after that, the train just derailed. It was so heartbreaking because everybody expected that was the year. I would say it's probably one of the easier paths to a World Series in the last little while because of, the Diamondbacks are better than us, so it doesn't matter. They beat us. But perspective-wise, what Phillies fans thought, and I think what the media thought as well, it being the Diamondbacks and either the Rangers or the Astros. And it doesn't matter because we lost. It was very tough. I still can't hear the name Craig Kimbrell without shaking. Nick Castellanos had the worst series I've ever seen out of any player ever in the NLCS after doing so good. We'll get to him later on. So moving on from the Phillies, the Eagles, this is something I wasn't surprised by, I'll say, the Eagles' downfall. The Phillies completely caught me off guard with the NLCS blowing that series. But the Eagles, from early on, I could just see that they were a fraudulent team. It was that game against the Jets that really showed there's some serious flaws in this team. And then I really think the rest of the season, they were just squeezing by wins. No quality wins, really. Just squeezing by wins, which is okay in a sport that has such a short season. But eventually, you got to get something clicking. And they were almost playing like a week 1 team throughout the entire season. Never really getting anything going. The offensive play calling was probably the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. I think the worst offensive play calling I've seen, and that's including, the end of the Doug Peterson era. I think that offensive play calling was worse. The secondary and that second level of the defense besides the defensive line was terrible. But that's that. And now the 76ers, this is more recent than the Phillies and the Eagles. Sixers just stinking it up. Knicks beat us in that first round. A nice swift first round exit for the Sixers. What's new? But the good thing is there's news on all these teams. And I would say overall good news, especially starting with the Phillies first. Wow. What an amazing start to the season for the Philadelphia Phillies. We're nearing the All-Star break now, and the Phillies are 58-32, good for the best record in the MLB. They've sort of fallen off a little bit the past couple of weeks here. That's due to injuries. JT is still out as of recording this. I'm recording this on July 9th, by the way. It's before the first game of the series against the Dodgers, which I'm terrified for, but Bryce Harper and Schwarber are back. And going back to what I was saying, Bryce Harper and Schwarber have missed a little bit of time. JT's missed an extended amount of time. The first rough patch of injuries we've experienced this season for sure. Being 5-5 without your 2 best hitters and your catcher, which I don't think JT gets enough credit for pitching staff doing so good this year, which that's what we're going to talk about next. The most impressive part of this team by far is that pitching staff. I mean, come on. Are you serious? Who expected this good of a year out of Ranger Suarez and Christopher Sanchez? Zach Wheeler, we already know he's elite. He's probably going to win the Cy Young. There's a couple guys in that race, including Ranger Suarez, but he's elite. We knew who he was going to be. Aaron Nola looks really good this year, but the 2 people outshining him, and even some cases being just as good as Wheeler, which no one expected, are Ranger Suarez and Christopher Sanchez. Did not see that coming. This was completely out of left field, pun intended. Ranger Suarez still leads the league in ERA, 2.58, despite having a very rough patch his last couple starts. He's kind of gotten figured out a little bit, struggling a little bit, which is expected. Hopefully he can get things going again to how he was pitching in April, May, and early June. But still leading the league in ERA. Zach Wheeler is 3rd behind Chris Sale, Christopher Sanchez 5. The Phillies currently have 3 top 5 pitchers when it comes to ERA. And I know I just raved about Ranger Suarez for a while, but Christopher Sanchez really breaking out, got that contract extension. Good for him. Congratulations. Under a 3 ERA, has had a couple of rough starts as of recent, but can't complain at all. The bullpen has also been incredible, especially those three top guys in the bullpen being Jeff Hoffman, Matt Strahm, and Orion Kerkering, all under a 2 ERA, with Kerkering and Hoffman being closer to a 1 ERA. That's amazing. You can't beat that at all. Gregory Soto has struggled at times throughout the season, but he is pitching better as of recent. Seranthony Dominguez, not looking great. And obviously there's other guys in the bullpen now too. You got Michael Mercado, who was called up because of all the injuries. Tyler Phillips got some playing time. Jose Ruiz, but none of those guys are staples of the bullpen at this point, I would say. But overall, I can't complain. I would possibly like to see them go for another bullpen arm at the trade deadline, but we'll get into that. Oh my gosh, how many times have I said get into that in the first few minutes of this podcast? But we'll get into that, I promise. There it goes again. But I want to look at the hitting. Let's analyze the lineup a little bit and how they're doing. So number one hitter, no surprise here, is Bryce Harper. He's having an MVP caliber season. He's right up there. I would say Ohtani's probably still ahead of him right now for the NL MVP race, but he could very much well be in second place right now at the halfway mark for the NL MVP. He's batting over 300, 20 home runs, 58 RBIs. He's missed a little bit of time here the past, I want to say a week and a half, 2 weeks with that hamstring issue, but the stats don't lie. Nearing a 1 OPS, a 175 OPS plus. I mean, he's Bryce Harper. We expected this. Next best hitter in the lineup, I think I'd say Trey Turner. Trey Turner missed an extended period of time, also because of a hamstring injury. A lot more time than Harper did. I think it was over a month and a half maybe. But he's still an all-star game starter, which I love to see. Batting .335, a lot less plate appearances than the rest of the team. But an incredible year again out of Trey Turner. Love to see the consistency out of him. Playing like the second half of last season the entire year. I mean, obviously not as good as that second half of last season because that was just absurd, but almost just as good, and we'll take that. Third best hitter, Kyle Schwarber. I think this is overlooked a lot by Phillies fans, the Philly media. He's been on the IL the last maybe week and a half, but he's coming back tonight. Kyle Schwarber is batting .250. Kyle Schwarber is not a .250 hitter usually. If you can recall to last season, he was a .197 hitter, under 200, below the Mendoza line. And now all of a sudden batting .250. He sacrificed a little bit of power. Only 17 home runs right now. I know it's crazy to say only 17 home runs, but I like that for him. I love that for him. Sacrificing a little bit of power. His on-base percentage has improved as well. It was a .343 last year, .373 right now. Slugging dropping just a smidge, but in terms of OPS and OPS plus, he is a better hitter this year. Love that for Kyle Schwarber. I would say the biggest surprise out of the Phillies lineup this year has been Alec Bohm. I'm so happy that Alec Bohm has taken that next jump as a hitter. He slowed down a smidge from how it was to start the year. He was on a tear to start the year, but he's still batting .296 with over 800 OPS, 11 home runs, 70 RBIs, by far the team lead in RBIs. Love to see that out of Alec Bohm. Now getting to that next tier of hitters, I would put Brandon Marsh at the top of that list. Brandon Marsh is batting .260. He's got 7 home runs, 32 RBIs. I love Brandon Marsh. He's an incredible defender, really underrated defensively. But I won't lie, at the beginning of the year, I was I was one of the people very mad at Rob Thompson for not playing Brandon Marsh every single day. But this is why Rob Thompson is an MLB manager and I am not. He gets the big bucks because Brandon Marsh is atrocious against lefties this year. Mind you, it's only 53 plate appearances, so there is the argument, and I would hear it, and I kind of understand that argument, that if you play him more against lefties, he's going to get more comfortable. I mean, that's just common sense. But in his 53 plate appearances against lefties, he's batting .150, no home runs, 2 RBIs, a .226 on base percentage. I mean, just disgusting numbers against lefties. But against righties, he's like one of the best hitters in the league. 7 home runs, 30 RBIs, batting .290, almost an .850 OPS. So you take that. I mean, if he's going to hit righties good, there's no issue in platooning him. But like I said, I still would like to see him get a little more run against lefties, but I understand why Rob Thompson is hesitant with Brandon Marsh against lefties. But otherwise, a really good year for Brandon Marsh, and I have a feeling he's going to pick it up here in the second half of the season. Now, something I think is not mentioned enough is the struggles of Bryson Stott offensively. I mean, he's really struggling this season. Bryson Stott is not a .240 hitter. He should not be batting .240, but he is right now. He's a below league average hitter at the moment. Thankfully, his defense makes up for his sort of poor performance offensively, but really need him to get it going. He's struggling a little bit here. He caught fire, I want to say, somewhere near the mid to end of May, but has been struggling as of recent. Looking for him to step it up in the second half of the season. There's no reason he should be batting .240. JT Realmuto, sort of forgot to talk about him because he's on the IL and has been for a while. That's what you expect out of him. He's batting like 260, 7 home runs. Can't complain. We'll take that. So now getting to the bottom tier of hitters, in my opinion, one of them might make you guys a little upset that I'm mentioning it, but I have very strong opinions about this individual. But first, let's talk about the center field position, that being Johan Rojas and Christian Pache. I know Brennan Marsh has seen the occasional game in center, but right now we're going to talk about Johan Rojas and Christian Pache. They're essentially the same player. They're both phenomenal defensively, but just are offensive liabilities. There's not much else to say. And I think that's going to cause the Phillies to make a move at the deadline this year. Johan Rojas and Pache are both still very young, and I can see them both turning around and being even just slightly below average league hitters would be fine with the defense that they can play. But it's clear that both of them right now cannot hit big league pitching. The person I want to talk about last, and a month ago, if I would have talked about this, everyone would have been agreeing with me. But now I think I'm going to have some people disagreeing with this, but Nick Castellanos is one of the most inconsistent MLB players I have ever seen. And this is a new thing as a Philly because prior to being a Philly, he was an incredible hitter, very consistent, a doubles machine. Some people call him Nicky Two Bags. That's just not translating with the Phillies. He has had a hot streak as of recent and has climbed his numbers back up a little bit. He's batting like 236 now, 94 OPS plus, getting near that league average for OPS 2 at a 680. But here's the thing with Nick Castellanos. He's not going to fool me again. After what happened last year, the ups and downs of that, he made the All-Star team, then fell off for a little bit, and then got hot again come playoff time, looked like Barry Bonds in that NLDS against the Braves, and then looked like if I was batting out there against the Diamondbacks. I think he hit that home run in game 1 and then literally didn't touch the ball after that, it seems like. But saying all that to say, he's not fooling me anymore. I know who he is. He's a streaky hitter. It's what he is. I think saying he's a streaky hitter is an understatement because he is the streakiest of hitters. And not only is he that, but he is statistically one of the worst defenders, if not the worst defender in the league. He is a liability out in right field. You can see this on a daily basis from him just making routine plays look a lot more difficult than they are. Some plays that should be outs becoming hits because he can't get to the ball or can't track it down, or his arm is not strong enough or accurate enough in right field. Some Phillies fans just push this away, but this is a big thing. What is he providing to this team? Right now, he's still, in terms of WAR, which I know wins above replacement is not the best stat. He's still a negative player right now, and he's been on the hottest streak of the year, which is like a league average run for everyone else. I wish him the best. I hope he can contribute to this team because he's not going to be traded since nobody in their right mind wants that contract. I can guarantee that unless you're giving up a top prospect for someone just to take his contract. It's not going to happen. I hope he can contribute to this team. I hope his quote-unquote hot streak continues, but I'm never going to trust him again, and that's where that lies. He's just not a trustworthy player in the MLB anymore, and I would say the biggest liability on this team. I say that because Johan Rojas and Pache are both young and have time to develop, and you can replace them. They both have very cheap contracts, but Nick Castellanos, it seems there's no replacing, and Rob Thompson is obsessed with starting him every single day. So we're going to have Nick Castellanos here. That's just what that is. And it sort of reminds me of the situation with Taijuan Walker and Spencer Turnbull. They're both on the IL now, by the way. Spencer Turnbull started off the year amazing. He looked incredible in that starting rotation. And then when Taijuan Walker came back, they, for some reason, moved him to the bullpen and played Taijuan Walker. And he struggled, as still struggling. I know he's on the IL right now, but he's got almost a 6 ERA. And they're still committed to having him in the rotation, it seems. Right now, obviously not, because like I mentioned, he's on the IL. But I don't get it. Just because I think this is a mentality that the Phillies have that I don't like. I would say it's probably one of the major flaws this season. Just because you're paying someone a lot of money doesn't mean you have to just stick and start him every single day. There's bad contracts in every sport. But if you have someone better than that person, play them. That's just how that works. Or figure something else out. He does not have to be one of the main features of the rotation if he's not good. Eddie's just not good. There's no sugarcoating that. I hope he can step it up again, but he's been terrible this year. That doesn't make sense to me. But besides that, the Philly starters have looked amazing. And something that doesn't get enough credit, the bench has been amazing. Edmundo Sosa really stepped up when Trey Turner was away. Whit Merrifield, he's out there. He's on the field sometimes. I really like Cody Clemens, and I think he should stay as a bench bat. Designated David Dahl for assignment today, which is unfortunate. He had that really hot start, but then fell off the last couple weeks. And, you need to clear up roster spots for Schwarber and Harper to come back. It was just bound to happen. And now here I am making my fellow Phillies fans mad again because I'm going to talk about the backup catcher position. If right now, as of July 9th, 2024, You think that Rafael Marchand should not be the backup catcher over Garrett Stubbs once JT Realmuto comes back? I'm not sure what games you're watching. You must have a different TV than I do, because Rafael Marchand has looked really good. He's really picking things up as of recent, and he's only 25 years old. I think he's the perfect backup catcher to JT. And now on to Garrett Stubbs. And I've got a lot to say about him, but I'll try to keep it short. I still have not forgiven Garrett Stubbs for his comments during the NLCS last year. If you don't remember, it was something along the lines of, I'm not even going to go back to find the direct quote. I'll just summarize it real quick because it just hurts my heart to see it. Something along the lines of, we're going to jump into the pool in the Diamondback Stadium once we beat them to advance to the World Series. And then what happened after that? Garrett Stubbs is a fun guy, and I'm sure outside of the field, he is fun to be around, a fun guy at a party or something like that. But to say things like that as a bench player, I don't know. It gives the same energy as like, oh, my older brother's going to beat you up, because why are you talking when you're not playing? And we all know what happened. We lost the series, and he looked stupid for making that comment. But besides that, he's just really not a good baseball player. Like I said, I'm sure he's a good dude. I don't want to get him mistaken. I like him as a person, but I do not like him on my baseball team because he's not good offensively. He's okay defensively, but nothing special compared to some of the other catchers in the league that stink offensively, but then are incredible framers or amazing behind the plate. That's not him. That's just not who he is. And as you can see, we're getting short for roster spots right now with all the good bench guys that have stepped up. And then we're trying to get the guys back from IL on the team. If it comes down to sending Garrett Stubbs down or waiving him, I'm not against it. I know that's going to be very unpopular with Phillies fans, but that's just what it is. Men lie, women lie, stats don't. And the stats are showing he's not all that good at baseball. Wish him the best, but that's just what it is. I know a lot of this is sounding negative, but I'm still very happy with who the Phillies are. Obviously, they have the best record in the league. This is just me being nitpicky. So now I want to say 3 weeks, actually exactly 3 weeks, because it's on July 30th. Today's July 9th. And I think the Phillies are in position to make a move. Now, what that move is, I'm not 100% sure, but I like some of the ideas that are being thrown out there. My main want for the Phillies this offseason, and I know this is asking for a lot because of how expensive it'll be to acquire him. I don't think it's going to be as expensive as some people are making it out to be. Luis Robert would be the number one want for me. He would solve so many problems for the Phillies in that center field position. He's arguably just as good of a defender as Rojas or Pache, maybe a little bit worse, but has an incredible bat. I've seen some people talking about his current .224 batting average. We're in 2024. Batting average is not everything. OPS Plus shows that he's a way above league average hitter with a 120. He's got 10 home runs. He's an incredible player. The main worry with him is not his average or anything like that. The two main worries for him would be his injury history. He's had a deep injury history, and how much it's going to cost to get him, to be frank, because he's 26 years old, has a lot of team control left. It's a bit of a difficult situation because the White Sox are definitely going to be sailing at the deadline because of how bad they're doing. I feel really bad for White Sox fans, hoping they can turn it around in the coming years. But how often do you get a chance to acquire a 26-year-old who's elite at his position, has a lot of team control, and solves an issue on your potential World Series team? If you have the chance to do that move, you go out and do it. Now, I don't want to give up Aiden Miller or Andrew Painter for Luis Robert, but prospects aren't everything. I know that hurts, and a lot of people can be like, what are you talking about? There's no way. I know it sounds wild. A lot of the times when teams make these big deals for big-time players, you don't know how these prospects are going to be. They could be amazing and, the number one prospect in the league and come up to the majors and stink it up. And, to be honest with you, that's happened a lot with the Philadelphia Phillies in the last decade. Looking back to Dominic Brown, he was touted as one of the next superstars for the Phillies, and look what happened. Scott Kingery is still fairly young, so he can still have a chance to do something in MLB, I believe. But the point I'm trying to make is you never know how good these prospects are going to be. And if you have a chance to make a move for a guy who's solidified, despite his injury history, you'd make that move 10 times out of 10. And I don't think it's going to cost the top 5 guys in our system to get someone like a Luis Robert. It might be expensive, but I think it'd be worth it. But now on the cheaper side of things, one that I've been seeing floating around a lot online and a bunch of different articles with it, and something I didn't really think of, and you could make the argument he's one of the most underrated players in the MLB because he doesn't get a lot of national media coverage because he's playing for the Athletics. By the way, little side tangent here. I feel terrible for Athletics fans. The people in Oakland deserve better than what they're getting right now, and how they've been getting a subpar product for years and years and years. And even when they make the playoffs like they did a couple of years ago, everything is then sold off. And now they're moving to, what was it, Sacramento within the next couple years, and then Vegas after that. It's just ridiculous, and Oakland fans deserve better than that. But that aside, Brent Rooker is a phenomenal hitter, and once again would be a great acquisition by the Phillies. He's batting .278 with 18 home runs, a 155 OPS plus, and an 890 OPS. I think he would be an amazing pickup for the Phillies, and also would not be that expensive because he's 29. Believe he still has a couple years of team control. Yeah, a good amount of team control until 2028. So that might inflate the cost to get him a little bit. My only worry with that is that we already have like about 3 DHs on this team right now. We have Kyle Schwarber, who's a DH, Nick Castellanos, who should be a DH. I don't know if adding another guy like that makes a whole lot of sense. You could definitely stick him in the outfield and then, play Marsh in center. Regardless, if you can get a hitter like that that's tearing the leather off the baseball, you go out and make that deal and figure it out after, especially if it's not going to cost your entire farm system or even that much. There's some other names being tossed around. Jazz Chisholm. One I like is Tanner Scott out of the Marlins, but I don't know if there's going to be any in-division trading like that. I've even seen Cody Bellinger's name tossed around a lot. I don't know that the Cubs are going to move on from him. It's definitely possible. I think Brent Rooker or Luis Robert would be a great pickup for the Phils. Now, in a perfect world, Kyle Tucker would be available. I don't know that the Astros are going to want to move him now that they are above 500 and are sort of competing for that division with the Mariners. It seems like they're going to probably stick with him. If he becomes available and the price is not too steep, despite him being on the IL right now, of course, I would love to see the Phillies make a move. It seems a little unrealistic and out of reach to get Kyle Tucker on the Phillies. I would absolutely love it, but I don't think it'll happen. Hopefully I'm a jinx right now and we end up getting Kyle Tucker in the next couple weeks, but a Brent Rooker or Luis Robert are definitely more likely. I definitely have a lot more to talk about with baseball and want to get into the all-star rosters, talk about my other team, the Yankees, and how much they've stunk it up in the last month. The fall off of them has been crazy. I also don't want this episode to be 6 hours long. So on the next episode in 9 months, no, I'm joking. On the next episode, we'll talk about that and the Phillies and everything else related to baseball as well. Now I want to move on to the Eagles. So like we mentioned, the Eagles fell off last year. Everyone knows, yada, 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 yada. I think they've made all the right moves in this offseason, at least to win me back and give me some hope, because I was short on hope to end that 2023 season for the Eagles. But first off, I wanted to mention Jason Kelce retired. You can ask my girlfriend, shout out D, but I was almost in tears when he announced his retirement and then sort of took it back and then announced it again. It was toying with my heart. I'm happy for him. He was one of the best Eagles ever, and I'm excited to see what he does. I believe he sign with ESPN, was it? Excited to see what he does in the media world, and he's going to be really entertaining there. Kelsey's gone. That stinks. The moves they made in this offseason, like I said, have been amazing. They signed Saquon Barkley, which I did not see coming. I absolutely love it. The biggest thing with him will be his health. He's had a history of injuries in the past, but he's amazing. He's Saquon Barkley. I mean, how many years was he torturing us when he was with the Giants? And he's always had subpar to atrocious O-lines. I mean, that's just a fact. That's something I wanted to talk about really quick. I know I have a bias against Giants fans because I'm an Eagles fan, but even putting that aside, the logic there between how upset they are with Saquon Barkley makes no sense. Now, I understand. You can be upset with him. He signed with what could arguably be your biggest rival, but you didn't offer him a contract. You can't be that upset if you didn't offer him a contract. If the Eagles had a player and he was our star player and we didn't offer him a single contract and he went to the Giants because they wanted to offer him money, I can't be upset about it. I got to be mad at my team. Why didn't you offer him a contract? Just the logic is not adding up there, being so furious with Saquon Barkley, especially like how Tiki Barber was saying that Saquon was dead to him. It makes no sense, man. Like, come on, let's be real here. But love that signing. Sad that DeAndre Swift is gone, and absolutely loved him on the team. I can't wait to see him on that revamped Bears offense with, oh my gosh, they have so many weapons on that team now. Caleb Williams they drafted, who's going to be incredible. They have a stacked receiver core with Roma Dunze, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen with the veteran presence, and now DeAndre Swift. Woo! It's going to be fun to watch those Bears. Hopefully they could put it all together. Bringing back CJ Gardner-Johnson was also a huge move that I loved and I think is an underrated one. He should have never been off the team after that 22 season to begin with. Regardless, I'm happy he's back. First off, he's an incredible player. He brings this sort of energy to the team that we lacked last season. He's not afraid to talk trash, not afraid to defend his players, get in the guy's face if, he's talking trash to him. So I love that he is back with his team and we don't have to go against him. And then they addressed the offensive play calling issue by firing Brian Johnson and bringing in Kellen Moore. I will say I am cautiously optimistic when it comes to Kellen Moore. I think he has the tools to be a great offensive coordinator, but I want to see it first. So in a couple weeks, or I guess not a couple weeks, but in a couple months here, we'll see how that plays out. Apparently a lot of positive feedback when it comes to him in the start of training camp, but we'll see. And then in the draft, they had such a perfect draft in my eyes. Right now, we're just going to focus on those first two picks being Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, addressing the secondary and how much they struggled in the 2023 season. And frankly, they were aging a lot. Darius Slay, I think, is still a very serviceable player, very good player, but he's, I believe, on the opposite side of 30 now, which is crazy to say, but in the NFL, especially for a cornerback, you never know how much longer he has left. James Bradbury looked not like his 2022 self at all last season. I don't have to tell you guys that. You already know. So to draft two guys in that secondary, Quinyon Mitchell, definitely going to be a corner, I would assume. Cooper DeJean has flexibility to be a corner or a safety, and they're both super young. It's exactly what the Eagles needed, I believe. It was a masterclass by Howie Roseman. Great job to him. And A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith getting extensions. I would have been heartbroken if either of them was not an Eagle within the next 2 years. It's just, those guys are incredible. I love them both. They're amazing in their own way and complement each other perfectly. I'm just so happy that they're both going to be Eagles for the foreseeable future. Great job on the offseason. On later episodes, we'll dive more into the Eagles offseason, looking at some of those later draft picks, like Jeremiah Trotter Jr. What a story there, bringing back the Trotters to Philadelphia. But for now, we're going to chat about the Sixers a little bit and then wrap things up. So the Sixers, once again, what's new? Another disappointing playoffs from the 76ers. Fell to the Knicks in 6. It was definitely one of the most entertaining, if not the most entertaining series of the postseason, I believe. I might be a little biased there, but, I shouldn't like it that much considering the Sixers lost. Every game was close. It was a fun watch. Not so much for me because I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown every single game. The Knicks were the better team, and that's just that. The Sixers, I will say, going into the playoffs, I had no confidence in the Sixers. They've just slowly but surely ruined my confidence as the years go by, especially when it comes to the playoffs. And that's all that matters is the playoffs. I really don't care how they do in the regular season. But they have made some good moves in the offseason thus far. Obviously, the offseason is very young. They signed Paul George, which is great. Tobias Harris is gone. I feel bad that it didn't work out like we thought it would. It just had to be done. Tobias Harris, who ended up being not the best 76er ever, is how we'll positively put it. I don't want you guys to think I'm too negative now, trashing Philadelphia sports or anything like that. I'm happy to have Paul George on the team. They just extended Tyrese Maxey. I absolutely love Tyrese Maxey. He's becoming one of my favorite players in the NBA. He has such a good mentality. He's an incredible scorer. And I don't know if you guys saw, they leaked that they might be bringing back those classic AI 76ers jerseys, the all black with the red. Oh my gosh. If they do that, rest in peace to my bank account because I'm buying at least like 6 jerseys. They got him back. They drafted Jared McCain, who I think is going to be a really good role player on the 76ers. Brought back Andre Drummond, who was here a couple years ago. Eric Gordon is now on the team as well. Good veteran presence. I think they've made a lot of good moves. Do I have any faith as of right now? Well, no. But that's the Philly way. No. But they haven't given us any reason to have faith. It's not going to matter, sadly, until next April when the playoffs come around. Even if they win 60 plus games next year, which probably won't happen, it's not going to matter until we see some playoff success. But I like the moves they've made, and I think they're headed in the right direction there. So anyway, that's the second episode of Broad Street Banter with Brito. I'm happy to be back talking to you guys, recapping some Philly sports, and definitely want to go into some things outside of Philly sports as well. But I wanted to make this second episode almost solely about Philly sports and recapping what's happened since our last episode in September, and then talk about the now in Philly sports. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in 9 months. I'm joking. I do have a little bit of a busy schedule coming up, but the next episode will most certainly be out within the next 2 weeks. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.